And it brings me really to the question of this burning Waymo, for the 5 burning Waymos, but this, what is increasingly like this interesting symbol of so many things, the future of technology. It's a symbol in the tech industry, I would say, the self-driving car. It's a symbol of class rage and warfare that is bipartisan. You see people on both the left and the right who see this as a really dangerous thing, the idea of a self-driving car, a truck. In the case of, there was an interview with Tucker Carlson, or a debate between Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, where Tucker Carlson was like, of course I want to ban self-driving trucks. Like, why would I not? And in this case, there was like, there's the immigrant sort of dynamic of that, whatever that is. Blake just wrote a piece on that, and I'm gonna let you go off in a second. But I would say it's interesting that has become sort of the mascot of the LA riots, is the burning Waymo, because a future where we are not a single culture, which is, we all seem sort of, I think, weirdly in agreement that like that seems to be where this is headed. The future that I see is the sort of South African future, a future where it's, if you don't trust your neighbors, you're looking at a future of more personal security. You're looking at a future of gated communities. You're looking at a future of any kind of technology that helps insulate you from other people. So what is the self-driving car, the Waymo, but like a bubble that protects you from everybody else? You're not even talking to a driver anymore. And that is suddenly now looking like a world of sort of parallel societies within parallels. Like, it's a technological it is a technological solution that creates parallel societies within a world that's already fragmented culturally. So another world. So it's like parallels within parallels. I think that kind of is possibly the future. It's like, are we entering a world of gated communities and armed Waymos, basically, is what I'm asking.
The best way to predict the future is to look at the past and extrapolate. So if you burn 2 Waymos, is this going to affect Waymo as a company? How many Waymos would you have to burn? 5 Waymos. Okay. So how many Waymos would you have to burn to impact Waymo, right? That's the question. And that's the question these protesters should be asking. If any of you guys are watching, you won. Waymo's going to see it burned and be like, I'm done.
How do you not understand? So, George, this is a meme. A meme was just created. One burning Waymo with people happily waving flags in front of it now makes the entire fleet unsafe. You're going to see burning Waymos for the next 10 years. You're going to see this.
Well, I mean, like, if I was trying to deploy, figure out which city am I deploying Waymo next to, I'm being like, well, which is the most politically neutral city, or which city doesn't have a left-leaning population, because that seems to be who the last riots, the last group of people who burnt them down. It's definitely going to be affecting their policy. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the meetings right now of deciding like where, because you saw the footage of them driving all the Waymos out of LA. So they're taking them somewhere else. They're like, well, fuck it, we don't want them in LA anymore. So where are they going to take them? I mean, I could see a market for them opening up in like middle America, actually, where if they become a political symbol of like leftist destruction, then maybe middle America is like, we want them, actually. It's real hard to get around. I want them, like, I want one on my farm taking me from A to B. Who knows? I'm sure there'll be a market opportunity open up, but no, I think it absolutely affects.
Waymos.
Exactly.
And they were even white. They were white. They are white.
I try not to have sympathy for robots, but I actually felt like a deep sadness for them.
I want to talk about that in a second, but Blake, I know you have a point, and then I want to talk about the anthropomorphic Waymo thing that's happening.
Well, it's interesting. This isn't the first time that Waymos have been set on fire. It happened in February in San Francisco. It was only one car, I believe, but the car was just navigating a celebration of the Lunar New Year or something, and members of the crowd spontaneously decided to destroy it. There was graffiti, bashed in the windows, threw in a firework. Maybe they didn't know that would light it on fire. Anyway, it totally burned to the ground. And at the time, Waymo said in statements to the press, the car was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is kind of a one-off thing, but that's clearly not the case. They've offered similar language actually in coverage of the LA riots. So maybe they understand more than they're sharing, but I think you're totally right. Waymo's become something that's way beyond Waymo. These cars are not just at the wrong place at the wrong time.
They're being hunted.
This is we are in the beginning of the transition period between where the majority of vehicles on the road are human driven to where the majority will be self-driven. At some point we will, go through that flippening, right? But because we're in the early stages, they are still a novelty. And if you have a group of agitators looking to cause mayhem who are probably in parts, I think there's probably a little bit of just like the fact that they went for that as a thing to damage, although maybe at the same time, this is to George's point, we're just being shown the Waymos. That's the most interesting thing, right? That for the algorithm to boost. Like there was a bunch of like mom and pop stores that were burned down, Foot Locker, all of these like stores.
I saw a guy getting fingers blown off, which I was surprised.
Like horrible shit, and like all these stores completely wrecked, people who now have lost their livelihoods and so on. We don't hear about that because it's not sensational. And so it's we're focusing on the Waymo because, as George pointed out, that's what the algorithm wants us to. It is the most objectively interesting because it's a novel thing, it's a novel technology. It sets off some kind of weird protectionism, maybe, I don't know. But I think we're just going to trend towards self-driving cars anyway, and they're soon not going to be novel anymore, and so they're not going to be the thing that's being picked on.
Yeah, but for now, I mean, first of all, interesting that the computer would want us to focus on violence against computers. And I'll just set that aside for a second, something to think about at night. But for now, they certainly represent something. Like it seems like, what does Waymo mean? It has this interesting, why is it's, you think it's just novelty, but it reminds me of the Google bus protesters like 10 or 15 years ago in tech, when you would have these commuter buses that were stopped by angry mobs of people, and they would lump it together with all sorts of stupid shit like housing and things like this. But they just were mad about it. It was a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of power. The Waymo is now also a symbol of the tech bro, who is himself a symbol of a political power because of the sort of like Elon Musk and Donald Trump alliance. Now, what does Elon Musk have to do with Waymo? Nothing. But what is the average crazy person in LA with a flamethrower know about that? Like, I don't think he sees a distinction between Google and Elon Musk, even though they probably hate each other.
Can I add a little bit of a wrinkle? Just that we interviewed the citizen journalist guy, Cam Higbee, who was there, and a couple of others actually. And it seemed like part of what happened is other cars with real human drivers were avoiding the area entirely because they saw a bunch of chaos and knew better. I do think part of what happened is that the cars were ordered on the app because there weren't other cars around to burn. And in that sense, going back to this point about chaos and opportunists, Mike, you've talked in the past about, are people looking for an excuse to be violent? And I do think that the Waymo represented that. We heard that various things were shouted as the Waymos were being burned, including "fuck Waymo," and also the company can just file an insurance claim. So there's this idea of there's no owner, or the owners don't matter, the owner's so big that it doesn't matter, and so on. So I feel like it's a lot of things at once. It's the kind of opposition to the man and tech in the way you're saying. We know that just from the graffiti that was plastered all over the Waymos. But it's also this kind of animalistic tension, looking for a great TikTok, no other cars are around.
That's obviously, we're sort of always like one crisis away from going primitive again, which we all saw in 2020, like how quick people were to just descend into the like, I'm going to break something, I'm going to steal something. It's me against the world. Civilization takes a lot of energy to maintain, and not just like physically, but psychically. The idea of civilization collapses when things get a little bit wild and spooky. And that's what we saw to a certain extent. There are people who are sort of waiting to prey on these moments, I think. And you can kind of feel, I was watching a bunch of clips this morning, the protests / riots. I think you can clearly just call them riots. There were people in Portland last night trying to light a federal building on fire. Like, that is not a protest. Like that, I mean, it's a kind of protest, but it's like that qualifies as riot to me personally. we're seeing this shit now. It's like Portland. I saw similar mobs in Seattle lighting shit on fire outside of the federal building and trying to block it, setting up tents. Emaciated, sort of drug addict looking guy shouting Allah Akbar. It's like New York City, where they're really not fucking around in New York. Like, they are arresting people left and right, and they're saying like, we're not doing that this year. They want it. They want that 2020 shit. And you could see this sort of unnatural kind of like trying to force the like BLM language into the immigration thing, which is just inherently so not a good fit. Like, Black Americans frustrated about Black issues, however you feel about them, they're black, but they're American. Like, they are more American, or at least longer than most of us. Like, we're talking about people who have descended from Americans 400 years ago. And that issue is just like so different than someone who just got here and is now angry about something which the average person, including the average Black person, does not give a shit about, as we saw in Chicago during the Biden-Trump election, where this like constantly came up, this idea of, immigration as an issue that actually brought Black Americans closer to the right. So I don't know. I think that's not going to work, but you can just sort of feel people really wanting that. And I think that is because there's like a knee-jerk sort of desire to excuse violence. They want to break stuff.
There's just like agents of chaos.
Yeah. Getting back to the question about just like what to do about the Waymos, I really hope we don't resort to having to arm the Waymos like you suggested, Solana, because I remember like doing like trips to Mexico as a kid, and you'd see like a military truck drive by with like dudes carrying AK-47s in the back. And it was just like a reminder of like, oh, I'm in a third world country now. And I would hate to feel that feeling in like Santa Monica. So hopefully we can find a solution that's not that. The
police will rob you. That's crazy. That is straight up like, I know multiple people who have been robbed by the police in what is the Yucatan area. So it's like Cancun down to Tulum. And that's one of the better parts of the whole country. So they have to bring in the military with masks because they don't want the cartels to know who they are, because the cartels will go and find their family and kill them. Like, it is it's a different place. But on the question of arming the Waymos, I mean, is there a path here? How hard would that be to do? What does that look like?
What about those guns that blow bubbles?
No. Rubber bullets, at least. George, how do we get there?
The simpler thing to think about is just to ask what's happened in situations like this before. I think Detroit is a good example. So people think it's the auto industry collapse that wrecked Detroit. It was actually 2 race riots. After the second one, all the people with money were just like, I'm done with this, you guys. So I think the same thing will happen here. I think if there's a city that shows persistent opposition to the Waymos will go somewhere else.
Like an actual straight up, we are really talking about a white flight right now.
Yeah, and you just have to talk about the economics of arming the Waymos. Is it really worth it to build armed robots to get $7.86 for a ride in LA? Probably not.
But what happens when LA collapses? If we're talking about a world in which LA is so violent that the Waymos have to straight up leave, that implies a lot of other things about LA to me that says that city's not going to last. And then all of those people are going to flood the surrounding areas. Like, aren't we going to have to arm the Waymos at some point?
I'm moving to Asia. No. I don't know. I think this is all cooked.
Oh, man.